For my research, I decided to study physical activity breaks in the classroom. My overall research question was simple, as I wanted to see what effect does physical activity breaks have on student behavior, students' test scores, and overall cognitive function. Pertaining to the research question, I developed 3 hypotheses related to both present research on the topic and results that I thought I would find. Number 1, physically active classrooms that install regular physical breaks and activity will have students with improved fitness while also having students' positive impact on students' academic achievement. Number 2, boys will show more positive academic achievement and a positive impact on their behavior due to an increase in physical activity and physical breaks compared to girls. And number 3, there will not be a wide variance in academic achievement increases due to physical breaks and activity between 6th graders, 7th graders, and 8th graders. In my study, we look at both 6th graders, 7th graders, and 8th graders in a middle school and see how these physical activity breaks impact their cognitive function and behaviors, and I think that results will be similar amongst the 3. The purpose of the study is mostly revolved around current educational policy in the United States, with the national curricula such as Common Core and standards becoming tightly packed where teachers feel that there is not enough time in the day to get through all the content. This study basically looks to see if less is potentially more in terms of teaching. For example, instead of utilizing 40 minutes rushing and cramming everything in, would it be more effective to positively use 30 minutes of the lesson where the other time is allotted to physical activity breaks in order for students to better retain the material and be able to focus more, behave better, etc., etc. So is less more in terms of getting in all of the material. In addition, the purpose of the study is to research the effect that physical activity breaks have on adolescent students in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. To create a baseline, all students will take a pre-assessment on the solar system. The experimental group will receive a break every 20 minutes for the duration of the 2-hour lesson, while the control group will receive a continuous 2-hour lesson pertaining to the solar system. After that, a post-assessment will measure academic growth for each student. Furthermore, student behaviors will be monitored, observed, and recorded for both groups throughout the lesson. A teacher will be present, not presenting the material, but be present in the classroom, observing behaviors, and recording information in a journal that will be collected and analyzed at the end. The reason that we wanted to do this in the study was to not just look at how this activity breaks affected cognitive function and test scores, but also how the students were enjoying the class, participating in the class, and basically just behaving in general in the class. The population for the study is 186 students currently enrolled at Van Wyck Junior High School. 61 of these students are 6th graders, 75 of these students are 7th graders, and 50 of these students are 8th graders. Gender breakdown was as followed: 52.6% were female, or 98 students were female, and 47.3% were male, or about 88 students were male. As previously mentioned, the methods for this, the research included 2 groups, an experimental group and a control group. Both groups took a same pre-assessment regarding Earth's solar system to establish a baseline for their knowledge on the topic. Students in the experimental group took part in a lecture or activities, etc., videos regarding Earth's solar system. However, every 20 minutes for 2 hours, the students in this group were able to take a 5-minute activity break. These activity breaks included activities such as walking, running around, throwing a baseball, shooting a basketball, hula hooping, hopscotching, up to the teacher's discretion, but the main thing was the time limit of 5 minutes. In order to be considered a physical activity break, students must have completed something that got the heart rate going to an extent. So nothing totally strenuous, but something where they were kinesthetically moving and partaking in some sort of motion or activity. Students in the control group completed the same lesson. However, they didn't get any breaks. They went a straight 2 hours. And at the end of the 2 hours, both groups took a post-assessment that mirrored the pre-assessment to establish what they have learned and what percentage growth could be seen in both groups. Once again, while this was happening, the lesson was happening, we had teachers who knew the students take observational notes, field notes to establish what behaviors were happening as the lessons were going on. So what students were raising their hand, what were the behaviors of the student, whether it was things such as pen tapping, slouching, yawning, were they excited, were they interested? This was all important, and this was collected at the very end and analyzed. In terms of data collection, in addition, students complete the same exam of for their respective lessons. They complete a Scantron for multiple choice questions, and additional short answer questions were graded using a list of acceptable answers, kind of similar to the Regents exams in New York State, where the teacher could only take a certain set of correct answers. And this was to avoid any teacher bias, because once again, these teachers know these students firsthand. Any students receiving IEP or 504 supports were given these supports in taking both pre and post assessment for the material, and of course throughout the lesson as well. Students were also monitored by, as we said, additional teachers to record behaviors such as attention, focus, body language, and more, and these journals were collected and analyzed at the end in order to determine the results. And lastly, the observations were written in a journal completed by the team teacher that knows these students. We felt that it was important to have a teacher that knows these students and to see how their behavior compared to that of normal. And so they really could identify which student specifically was acting in which way. Right. In terms of results, we found that the control group scored lower in terms of the percentage growth, with the experimental group, the group who received the activity breaks, scoring overall higher on the post-assessment. Furthermore, we found that the control group, the group that only went 2 hours in a row, had more behaviors that were deemed negative, such as slouching, yawning, pen tapping, feet tapping, not paying attention, not participating as much, zoning out, etc. Key findings, we found that 6th grade students were more likely to tap their foot, tap their pencil, or act out when experiencing boredom. Boys were 4 times more likely than girls to engage in negative behaviors within the control group. Cognitive improvement between the control and experimental groups showed similar growth in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students, which matched our hypothesis. And lastly, in a post-lesson survey given to the students who received physical activity breaks were over 3 times more likely to review the lesson positively and state they had an interest in the solar system. Once again, both lessons were the same. These students, obviously, with the activity breaks, were able to enjoy the lesson more and engage with it. In conclusion, incorporating physical activity breaks has a positive impact on adolescents' cognitive function, behavior, and assessment scores. And physical activity breaks show positives in both male and female students, but our findings show that at the middle school level, these breaks have a bigger impact on male students.